What's going on, everyone? My name is Kodamore and welcome back to Intro to Web Development episode 4. In this episode, we're going to talk a tiny bit more about positioning text onto our screen as well as attributes. Now, at the end of the last tutorial, I challenged you guys to try and create two separate lines to your website. So what I'm sure most of you guys did, and I did this as well, is you have your first line here, then you just hit the enter key and went to a new line in your code document and wrote a second line. So I'm just going to write the words second line here. Now, I would expect, and I'm sure you all expected, that this would create two separate lines to your HTML document. But if you go ahead to where you saved it and run it in the web browser, you'll see that the first line, for me it's hello YouTube, and the second line that says second line, are on the same line. The second line here is on the same one as the first line, and we did not want that. We wanted, like in our code here, to have this text on its own line and this second line to be on a second line. But it did not work. Why didn't that work? It all has to do with how the web browser reads your HTML code. Basically, the web browser is going to see a space in your code. So for instance, between the words hello and YouTube, I have a single space here. And the web browser is just going to put one space. But if I have a bunch of spaces, if I have 10 or 20 spaces between the words hello and YouTube, and I save my document, go to my web browser and reload it, it looks the same. There's still only one space between the words hello and YouTube. That's because the web browser treats any amount of spaces, so whether you have one space or 20 spaces, it's only going to give you a single space. No more, no less. So this also means that the tabs that we put in front of our code is not going to affect how our text looks, and whenever we press the enter key and put text on a new line in our HTML document, it's just going to say, alright, I'm going to give you a single space, but I'm not going to give you a new line. So how do we get around that problem? How do we force the web browser to give us a new line of text on a separate line? Well, we use something called the break tag for that. So wherever you want to insert a new line, for me I just want to do after this first line, hello YouTube, so after that, in between angled brackets, I'm going to write the letters BR. This is called the break tag. The break tag does not have a closing tag, it's just one single opening tag like that, and it tells the web browser create a new line, and any text that comes after the break tag will be on a new line. Now, if you go ahead and save this and go into your web browser and then make sure you refresh it, as you can see, the second line is now on the second line of our website. It's on a separate line. This is great. This is exactly what we wanted. And you can do this as many times as you want. So if I wanted to add a third line, after my second line, I'm going to put another break tag. Then I'm going to write third line. This should put the third line text on another line. Go back into your web browser, refresh it, and now we have a third line. So now we know how to create separate lines in our HTML document. This is great, and it's really simple. It's just a single tag called the break tag, BR. You're probably going to be using that quite a bit, so I'd get practicing with it. We are now going to begin learning what an attribute is. Now, an attribute gives extra information to a tag. Now, some attributes only go with some tags, and each tag has a list of available attributes, and you can usually find them online, and I'm going to be teaching you most of them as we go along anyways. But let's start with a simple one. This attribute is going to go with our HTML tag. So inside of the opening HTML tag, still in between the opening brackets but after the word HTML, you're going to specify an attribute. The HTML tag takes in a language as an attribute. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the word lang, that stands for language, and this is going to tell the web browser what language our website is in. It's just a little bit of extra information. Now to specify what language we have, after this lang, we have to put an equal sign, and then in between either single or double quotes, you're going to write your language. Now this takes in a language code, and I'm going to have a link down below that has a list of language codes. For English, it's just EN, and that'll specify that your document or your website is in the English language. Again, I'm going to have a list of all of these language codes so you can select your main language. Now again, this is called an attribute. This right here is called the lang attribute, the language attribute. So again, it goes inside of the opening HTML tag, but it's something kind of completely separate. It just gives extra information to this tag, such as the language in this case to be English. Now attributes are very, very important. For instance, once we begin learning how to put an image onto the screen, we're going to be able to set the width of the image and the height of the image via attributes. Now that's for a different tutorial, but there's tons of uses for attributes, and again we're going to learn a lot of them in the future. But now we're going to learn one quick thing. We are now going to learn what a meta tag is. Now your website is going to have something called metadata. And basically, metadata is just a bunch more information about your site. Now, metadata is very important because if you ever do publish your website on the actual internet, you're going to be able to specify things that Google uses to show your web page up in a search. And metadata can do much more for your site than just that. Now, metadata will often go inside of the head tags. You're probably going to only want to put metadata inside of the head tags. So below my title here, let's start learning this. Now, metadata is described in what's called the meta tag. So, in between two angled brackets, we're going to set the word meta. The first meta tag that we're going to create is going to be the author tag. So we're going to specify the author of our website. Now, we're going to use attributes to do this. So the meta tag says to the web browser that we're describing data. We're describing metadata like I just explained. But it needs more information. What is the data that we're saying? Well, first, the data needs a name, so we're going to create a name attribute and set it equal to something in double quotes or single quotes. This name is going to be set to author. So this metadata tag right here is going to describe the author of the website. That's going to be you. Now we're going to add in a second attribute. So after the name attribute and after we set it, we're going to put in the content attribute. So content, the equal sign, and then more quotes. The content is the actual data. So in this case, since we're specifying the author metadata, we're going to put your name. I'm going to write Code More because, well, that's my YouTube channel. So metadata is just more and more information about your website that can help with many things once you publish your website and other stuff like that. And it's declared by the meta tag. So meta, that's meta. Now the meta tag takes in usually two attributes. This attribute is the name attribute. So what type of data that you're describing? In this case, we're describing the author of the website. Then we have the content attribute, and we set this equal to the actual data. So who's the author? Yourself. I put Code More because that's me. Now let's try something else. Let's do another meta tag. So below this one, below this meta tag, this metadata, we're going to put another meta tag. And I want you guys to try and do this yourself. Try and create the description metadata. Alright, so here's how you do it. You have the meta tag as always. You're going to have to specify a name, so the type of data that you're describing. In this case, we're going to describe the description of our website, the actual description of our site. Then we have to actually supply the web browser with the description of our website. So we have to use a content attribute to actually set the description of our site. And you can do this whatever you want. You can do this for practice. You don't have to write much here for now. I'm just going to write, this is a tutorial site. And again, this is going to become the description of your website. And like I said, these metadata tags are used a lot by search engines like Google when you publish your website and things like that. You can also describe keywords. If you Google metadata or the meta tag in HTML, you're going to find a list of things that you're able to do with it. So we learned about attributes today. For instance, the lang attribute in the HTML tag provides more information to the HTML tag saying the language of our website is English or whatever language code that you put here. We're also using more and more attributes under metadata. And again, metadata goes in your head section and it just supplies more and more information about your site to the web browser and search engines and things like that. So we have the meta tag here that describes that we're saying some type of data. Then we have the name, which is the type of data, such as the author or description of our site. And the content is the actual data. So the author of our site, who is it? Code More or yourself. The content of the description metadata would be the actual description of your website that you have here. And if you go ahead and run your site, you're not going to see any change whatsoever. But this is important to when you're about to publish your website. And I would try not to forget this, because if you do finish a website and you forget this, you might not have the best search results and things like that. Thank you all so much for watching. We didn't see too many physical changes with our website. We only learned how to create new lines of text to our website, but we did learn a lot of background stuff, attributes which we're going to be using a lot in the future, as well as metadata, which is very important for your website. So we did learn quite a bit today. In the next tutorial, hopefully we'll be working a lot more with actually the looks of our website. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you then.